An illustrious playing career may ensure that you command the respect of a group of players when you first walk into a dressing room, but history tells us that there is very little correlation between great players and great managers. The top of the Premier League table right now tells you all you need to know, with Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, arguably the two best managers in world football right now, having had greatly contrasting talents and careers as players. Indian HITC Sevens subscriber Kevin, who follows me on Twitter, set me the challenge of coming up with a best 11 made up of ex-players turned managers, and I'm not one to shirk a challenge. To be clear, the 11 can only feature current first team managers of club or international teams, so no out of work managers, assistant managers, or retirees, and the inclusions are based solely on their talents as players. Before I start, if you would like to join Kevin and follow me on Twitter, the username is @HITC Sevens, and do of course make sure that you're subscribed to the channel on YouTube. Here is my best 11 of active managers based on their talents as players. Goalkeeper, Walter Zenga. It's often observed that not many goalkeepers go on to enjoy great success as managers, and there are a few reasons for that. Firstly, there is only one goalkeeper for every 10 outfield players, so statistically, it would make sense for there to be 10 outfield managers for every one goalkeeper. Then there's the fact that goalkeepers' careers tend to go on for longer than outfield players, and history tells us that prematurely ended playing careers often lead to the largest number of managers. Anyhow, there is no lack of options between the sticks, despite the presumption about former goalkeepers as managers, with the likes of Julian Lopetegui, Rogerio Ceni, Nuno Espirito Santo, and Stanislav Cherchesov to choose from. The pick of the bunch, however, is Walter Zenga, who was a 3-time IFFHS World Goalkeeper of the Year winner. Zenga spent the vast majority of his playing days with Inter Milan, racking up 58 caps for Italy and earning plaudits for his dominant goalkeeping displays and occasionally spectacular saves. Zenga has been in management since 1998, becoming a bit of a nomad, and he took over as Cagliari boss on March 3, 2020, but is yet to manage his first game with the club due to Serie A suspension. Right back, Dan Petrescu. Gary Neville might have been in contention here, where he's still employed by Valencia, but since he was sacked after about 5 minutes, we have a more adventurous former fullback in his place. An early adopter in terms of seriously attack-minded fullbacks, Dan Petrescu was a fullback who often played as a winger. Capped 95 times by Romania, Petrescu made his name in the all-conquering Steaua Bucharest side of the mid to late 1980s, and he spent the bulk of his playing days here in England. He made a 1993 to 2003 Premier League Overseas Team of the Decade thanks predominantly to his time with Chelsea, and the fullback immediately went into management upon his retirement in 2003. Now aged 52, he too has been a real journeyman of a boss, and he returned to Romanian outfit Cluj for a second stint with the club in 2019. Centre-back, Alessandro Nesta. In terms of modern-day defenders, or footballers in general, I don't think there are many as underappreciated as Alessandro Nesta. Not in Italy, of course, but certainly here in the UK. Nesta is, quite simply, one of the finest centre-backs to have ever lived. Tall, elegant, intelligent and dominant, Nesta's style rightly drew comparisons with compatriot Franco Baresi, and the only thing that held him back was a string of injuries, particularly after he turned 30. Nesta spent the vast majority of his playing days with Lazio and AC Milan, but he retired in 2014 following a short spell in India, and soon turned his attention to coaching. Following stints with Miami FC and Perugia, Nesta was appointed head coach of Serie B side Frosinone in 2019. Centre-back, Fabio Cannavaro. When it comes to defending, the Italians just do it better. Fabio Cannavaro is one of only 3 defenders to have ever won the Ballon d'Or, and he did so in 2006, having just led Italy to a seemingly unlikely World Cup win. The majority of Cannavaro's playing days were spent with Parma, but he later turned out for Inter Milan, Juventus and Real Madrid. Markedly short for a centre-back at 5'9", Cannavaro compensated for his lack of height due to his tremendous reading of the game. Cannavaro is neither as complete nor as good as Nesta, but his magnum opus, the 2006 World Cup, was among the most imperious individual displays by a footballer at a major finals. Cannavaro has been coaching since 2013, solely in the lucrative Chinese and Middle Eastern leagues, and he has been Guangzhou Evergrande's boss since 2017. Left back, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I was struggling to think of a great left-back currently employed in football management at first, and do of course let me know if I've missed anyone obvious, but in the end, I thought the gem in Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Capped over 100 times by the Netherlands, Van Bronckhorst started and ended his career with Feyenoord, starring for Rangers, Arsenal and Barcelona in between. Renowned for his slide tackles and audacious long-range efforts, Van Bronckhorst also doubled up as a winger, and he'd offer great balance with Petrescu on the opposite flank. Van Bronckhorst scored one of the goals of the tournament at the 2010 World Cup, and Holland's defeat in the 2010 World Cup final to Spain was Van Bronckhorst's last ever game. He spent 4 years as Feyenoord assistant, a further 4 years in charge of the Eredivisie side's first team, and like Fabio Cannavaro, he now manages in the Chinese city of Guangzhou, having taken charge of Evergrande's crosstown rivals Guangzhou R&F in January 2020. Central midfield. Patrick Vieira. Whether world-class central midfielders are more likely to make the jump into management, I'm not sure, but one thing I am sure of is that central midfield was by far the most competitive position in this 11. 6 or 7 genuinely world-class midfielders have to miss out on this 11, and I will come to those who missed out later on, but one man who doesn't is Patrick Vieira. Vieira led Arsenal with distinction for 9 years, so his move into management didn't come as any great surprise. Among the most dominant footballers of his generation, Vieira was a tall, powerful technician, a fantastic midfield all-rounder, aggressive, direct and intelligent. Born in Senegal, Vieira won more than 100 caps for France, with whom he won both the World Cup and the European Championships. Arsenal have never really replaced Vieira since his departure in 2005, and the 43-year-old now manages Ligue 1 side Nice, having previously spent 2 seasons with New York City FC. Central midfield. Xavi. I told you we had plenty of options in central midfield, and another man I simply could not leave out is Spanish legend Xavi Hernandez. The last couple of decades have seen some truly exceptional playmakers, from Pirlo and Fabregas to Scholes and Deco, but none finer in my opinion than Xavi. Xavi played a simple game, passing and moving, looking for space, and sticking religiously to the ideals of La Masia. His game may have looked simple, but finding and exploiting space on a football pitch is something many players struggle with, and arguably none have been more adept at it than Xavi. His ability to constantly make himself available and distribute pinpoint passes in the Spain and Barcelona midfields earned him the nickname the Puppet Master, and the metronomic midfield maestro was among the first names on this team sheet for me. Aged 40, Xavi only hung up his boots in Qatar last year, and he now manages his former club Al Sadd. Attacking midfield. Diego Maradona. As you can hopefully see from my typically brilliant illustrations, I'm employing a 4-2-3-1 formation for my managerial 11, and the 3 in behind the centre forward would all be given free rein to drift out wide, back in centrally, and interchange as they pleased. The first of those 3, and quite clearly the most talented footballer in this 11, is Diego Armando Maradona. And man who was born with the ball at his feet, Maradona was scoring a goal a game before he turned 20. Following a world record-breaking move to Europe age 22, it was felt that El Diego's influence could be even greater if he dropped a little deeper and became as much of a creative force as he had been a goal-scoring one. At his peak, which was of course the 1986 World Cup, Maradona was a force of nature. Arrogant, explosive, and blessed with all the talent in the world, Maradona left defenders scarred for life, and he is quite rightly heralded as one of the greatest players we've ever seen. Unfortunately, Maradona was a tainted genius with some potentially fatal flaws. Long before he hung up his boots, Maradona had a dangerous drug addiction, and his problems only became greater in retirement. The 59-year-old first moved into management in 1994, but his managerial reigns have tended to be brief but controversial. Maradona managed Argentina's national team from 2008 to 2010, and he returned to first-team management following 5 years out of the top job in 2017. Maradona spent last season coaching second-tier Mexican outfit Dorados, which there is a rather bizarre Netflix documentary about, and he now manages Argentine Primera Division side Gimnasia de la Plata, thus making him the first name on this team sheet. Attacking midfield. Zinedine Zidane. Perhaps the most obvious inclusion in this 11, given that Zinedine Zidane was such a high-profile player, and unlike many in this 11, he is now a very high-profile manager. Zizou is another man who appeared to have been born with the ball at his feet. I can think of few, if any, footballers during my lifetime who have looked so natural and elegant in possession of a ball. Zizou starred for Cannes, Bordeaux, Juventus and Real Madrid, as well as winning more than 100 caps for France and scoring twice in the 1998 World Cup final. A majestic footballer, unlike Maradona and co, Zidane's managerial foray has been really rather successful. During less than 3 full seasons in charge of Real Madrid, Zidane won 3 consecutive Champions League trophies and 1 La Liga title. That's a remarkable achievement under any circumstances, and Zizou subsequently resigned from his post, appearing to have timed his departure to perfection. Within less than 12 months he had been tempted back, and it is during this second stint that Zidane's managerial credentials will be really put to the test. Attacking midfield. Thierry Henry. Whilst my front 3 in behind the centre forward are all interchangeable, Thierry Henry always had a penchant for that left flank, so it makes sense to start him out towards that wing. The third Frenchman in this 11, Henry is France's all-time record goalscorer, a distinction which he also holds at club level with Arsenal. For 8 seasons at Arsenal, Henry was the scariest thing in the Premier League. Lightning quick, sensational on the ball, and deadly in front of goal, there are those who would argue that Henry is the finest player of the Premier League era, and I would tend to agree with them. Since retiring from football, Henry has become obsessed with the tactical side of the game, having had the privilege of working under some of the best during his playing days, from Arsene Wenger to Pep Guardiola. Following 2 years serving as Belgium's assistant manager, Henry had a short and fairly disastrous spell with his former club Monaco. The 42-year-old, who was once identified as a future Arsenal manager, is now attempting to rebuild his reputation in Canada with Montreal Impact. Centre forward, Andrei Shevchenko. It's all too easy for young English football fans to fall into the trap of judging Andrei Shevchenko on his brief and regrettable escapade in the Premier League with Chelsea, but to do so would be as ill-judged and as foolish as judging Ashley Cole's talents based on his short time in Italy with Roma. Such a complete centre-forward, Shevchenko was versatile, athletic, and enormously intelligent. He could also strike a ball firmly and accurately with either foot, and the end product was a remarkable number of goals. At a time when Serie A was considered to be the best league on earth, particularly defensively, Shevchenko hit 34 goals in a season. He left Milan with 172 goals in 296 games, and the Ukrainian legend moved into politics following his retirement. Having failed to win election, Shevchenko became Ukraine's assistant back in 2016, and he was promoted to the role of national team head coach later that same year. So that's it for my 11. I think it's pretty brilliant, but no doubt I will have missed someone, so let us know your thoughts and attempts in the comments. Some of the managers I had to leave out include the likes of Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Pep Guardiola, Raul Gonzalez, Ryan Giggs, Steve Bruce, Didier Deschamps, Antonio Conte, Diego Simeone, Carlo Ancelotti, and Giorgi Hagi. As you can see, some real talent. I could have played Henry instead of Shevchenko through the middle and added Hagi in attack midfield, or dropped one of those three a little deeper to find space for Gerrard, Lampard, Guardiola, etc. Ultimately, I went with the 11 I thought was the strongest, and with any combination, you end up with some real talent missing out. That's all from me, but just before I leave you, if you fancy yourself as a bit of a football manager, make sure to check our Lexpo. Run by our good friend James from HITC Sport, Lexpo has loads of great FIFA and football manager content that I'm sure many of you would enjoy, so make sure to give it a look. Thank you all for watching, give us a like if you enjoyed this video or are just feeling very generous, and feel free to subscribe to the ever brilliant HITC Sevens.